What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Tim Rouse studio. Rouse Plumbing, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. Big shout out to the first official sponsor of many. Come on. There we go. There we go. Good enough. It's going to fall again, and CKK will be there to let me know that it fell when it happens. Good morning to everybody listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. We've got a lot to get into here today as we wait for people to slowly trickle in. Hello to everybody on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Minocqua Brewing Company, Substack. You got plenty of ways to be spending your time, and I'm thankful that you continue each and every morning to join us here at Outside the Box. We've got a lot to jump into today. A little bit more on the national scene, although I will be dabbling in Wisconsin politics as well again today, but plenty to jump into. As we wait for people to trickle in, I am going to go off and hello to Jay, Roberto Clement, Eljo Soul, Jim, Phil, Jar Manny, Brian, Grandma Mickey, Mrs. Z, and everybody else that has taken the time to join us. After I got off the air yesterday, I threw Netflix on for the first time in a while, and there's a movie on there called What's Up Trees? The Last House. And so I watched the trailer for it, that automatically starts playing before you pick the movie. And like people get locked in their house, like everybody in the country gets, maybe the world, you don't know, gets locked in the house. The internet doesn't work, the phones don't work, the TVs don't work. Like there's no nothing. You have no idea what's going on outside, and the people are writing back and forth to one another, and they're trying to figure out who did this to them. And someone says maybe it was the government, and they write back, why would they do that? And they were like, for our safety. And immediately from watching the trailer, I was like, oh, this is going to be some kind of right-wing COVID related movie, isn't it? And I was like, I'm still going to watch it. I'm going to go against my better instincts, and I'm still going to watch it. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. It's called The Last House. I would not recommend it. It was cracking me up. Like, I was sitting there and I was like, I can't tell if the director actually felt this way about COVID or if he knows like half the country felt that way about COVID. And so as a result, he was like, I'm going to tap into that and exploit it. But either way, um oh god. And like the acting wasn't any good. And like at one point there were just like so many right-wing dog whistles. Like the kids all had to learn. Like they kept doing school at the house. And like don't get me wrong. Like I understand. Like I don't understand why they teach us trigonometry before they teach us how to balance a checkbook. And like I think that's an issue. Um right? Like there are elements of school that I get, but they're sitting there and their son is just like upset that he's learning. He's like, "Hey, what did I tell you?" The dad. He's like, "During school hours, you act like you're at school." And I was like, "All right." Um I dig that. And then he's like, you know what? It is a waste of time. Let me show you something that matters. And he shows them all how to gut a fish. He's like, I was a fisherman for the first 20 years of my adulthood. And I was like, well, that's why you think it's important. It's because it was your job. Like, I'd argue your kids should probably learn math and reading before they learn how to gut a fish. Personally, I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm just saying, I feel like there's a hierarchy here and basic reading, writing, and arithmetic outranks gutting a fish in most lives. Now, if society collapses, we can have that talk, and it seems as though society was collapsing there. But if you can't go outside your house, you can't eat math. I get that, but if you can't get outside your house, if all the doors are locked and you can't leave your homes, what good is being able to gut a fish? Right? So it's a stupid movie. It's called The Last House. Don't watch it. Jay loves You Can't Eat Math, Eljo. So there you go. But I feel like maybe you should all watch it just so you can understand what I put myself through. And it's 2 hours long. That's way too long for a stupid movie. The optimal length for a stupid movie is 84 minutes. Anything longer than that, and we've gone too far. In like 2 hours, when I was like, man, this feels like it's been on forever. And they're like about to leave the house. I was like, how is there still a half hour? Like, this is impossible. So dumb. Negative Ghost Rider. I'm obsessed with that shirt. It's just so me. I agree. I'm back in the Hotties for Hong shirt. I moved the sticker though. It used to say Hose for Hong, but I put it in the wash and the sticker came off. I might just block it out, you know. But that movie was so bad. Mad I wasted my life watching. I can't believe, like, here's the deal, Cassandra. It, like, every time you log on to Netflix, it's like watch The Last House. And I was like, all right. All right. I'm here for it. Waste of time. Waste of time. Hose for Hong. Damn right, trees. Uh, any suggestions for newer horror suspense movies that aren't predictable and boring? I actually don't have a newer one right now. That's what I was hoping I found. I was like, you know what? I'm going to slum it today. I'm going to find something that no one else has watched, and I'm going to slum it. And I like, but like that's when you're sifting for diamonds in the rough, you have to embrace that you're going to eat a lot of shit on your way to finding that diamond. Just so happens I had a heaping spoonful of shit in that particular viewing yesterday evening. Hello, hello, as more people trickle in. I haven't really been following the primaries in Florida, Eljo. What's this? Saw this movie too. Strange. Cool to see you on your podcast, dude. Right on, Mary Lou. How do I know you? But I'm glad you're here. If you don't want to out yourself, that's fine. Yeah, Heretic was fine. It was good. Obsession was fine. It was like a good episode of Tales from the Crypt is the best way I can describe it. Oh yeah, Good Boy is fantastic. Good Boy was a good one. It's starring a golden retriever who probably should win best actor. But all right, enough of that. That's been after dark talk, but I did have to at least warn you guys that I did watch that movie. Um but I gave it a whack, and I am not here. Okay, Martin Rudy, Oshkosh, and of Aaron. Oh, wonderful, of Aaron the intern. Great. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you I'm glad you made a little bit of time for us here. That's wonderful. We're about to jump into the politics of it all. So allow me to completely rub you the wrong way as soon as we get things rolling here. But if you didn't listen to, we're going to start on the internet, the national scene, and we're slowly going to drill back down into Wisconsin over the course of the next 2 hours. Unless, of course, I get distracted and then we don't do that, which is obviously just as likely. Mary auto corrected to Kmart. That's hilarious. But so, with that, I do want to jump on the international scene first. If you were not listening to Outside the Box yesterday, and we're going to start heavy. I realize it's 9 o'clock in the morning. That's why I wanted to start it off with The Last House, because I knew we were going to get into some shit here. So I wanted to be able to like ease into it a little bit. But we're going to get into it now. Marjorie Taylor Greene went on the record. Now, you got to take anything this woman says with a grain of salt, but the fact is, she is convinced that we will be using nukes in Iran in the near future. I'm now going to read, I like paraphrased the post last night. I'm going to read the entire thing for you now. I feel you, CKK. I'll try my best. I'm going to read the entire thing here and what she has to say about the matter, but this gets at a larger overarching point. They are discussing using nuclear weapons on Iran in strategy meetings. Yes, you read that correctly. It's real. I'm not speculating. I know. And it's pure evil. The last time a nuclear weapon was used was August 6th and 9th of 1945 on two cities in Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, immediately killing 110,000 people, vaporizing people at ground zero, and total deaths reached 214,000 by the end of the year from severe burns and trauma. But the extreme suffering continued for the Japanese people, from radiation sickness, skyrocketing cancer rates, and generational birth defects, not to mention wiping out all means of their economy. And the suffering was so great that all of humanity vowed never again. Trump and his administration were told by our intelligence that Iran was nowhere near creating a nuclear weapon. Then Israel said the same line it's repeated for decades: Iran is only weeks away. So we bombed anyways, killed their leaders and innocent children in a school, and Iran has controlled the Strait of Hormuz ever since and punished the region for their part in it. And now our government is the only one actually discussing lowering the nuclear threshold in order to use a nuclear weapons against Iran, even though Trump claims he won the war like 40 times and says the US controls the Strait of Hormuz. Trump promised no more foreign wars, but may actually be the one who delivers a nuclear holocaust that would likely drag the entire world into a major conflict. Economic depression and mass human suffering we've never seen in our lifetimes and maybe throughout history. People need to speak out and boldly to stop this insanity. America is not untouchable. If and when that happens, everyone, and I do mean everyone, will hold all of those in leadership right now fully responsible for the rest of human history. Do not use nuclear weapons and stop this war now. Now, I have to ask, it is 10:11. It is 9:11 in the morning. As I said, you take anything Marjorie Taylor Greene says with a grain of salt. You should not be taking that woman seriously, but it does not change the reality that for her to say it with such certainty means it probably carries some kind of weight to it. And right now, it's a story about 2026 primary fight between moderate and progressive Dems. Something isn't adding up here. Either she doesn't know yet. Tim Roush is angry. That's why he dropped down. I'll pick him back up in a second. Either she is completely making it up and the media is ignoring it, or the media doesn't want to have this conversation because they don't want there to be a lot of unrest. And I do have to say, and I kind of intimated this last night, it really does feel like America's trending in the wrong direction in terms of our allies. And while this has only been exacerbated during Trump, it is not uniquely Trumpian. Joe Biden, just for sake of argument, ran in 2020 on "we're going to make Saudi Arabia a pariah." If you remember, they kidnapped Jamal Khashoggi and essentially cut him into pieces and buried him. He was an American journalist who happened to be visiting in the area. They grabbed him, disappeared him, gone forever. Joe Biden says, "I'm going to make Saudi Arabia a pariah." He goes down there and he fist bumps MBS, and they kind of move on as if nothing even happened. There's a number of obviously, he hugged Benjamin Netanyahu in the aftermath of October 7th. Totally get it. Once you start dropping white phosphorus, I think we've probably went a bridge too far, and it's time for you to acknowledge that maybe these aren't the kind of allies you want to be keeping. Now you're in the Trump administration, and he's forming strong bonds with Kim Jong-un and actually talking about lessening the military relationship between South Korea. And I used to talk about this all the time on that little radio station that I used to work for, but much like I used to say about Iran, do you remember all the fear-mongering from Obama and from Trump? The idea that North Korea was about to get nukes, and we had to be nervous about that because you never know what it is that they're going to do with nukes. In all honesty, I'm not saying Kim Jong-un's a good person and obviously not a totalitarian dictator. Like, I get all of that stuff. Has North Korea using a nuke ever crossed your mind since the media stopped talking about them building nukes? Exactly. So it's the same idea in Iran. I am not here saying that North Korea shouldn't get nukes. I had a regular interactor with the show when I was on the radio named Jerry from Appleton, which I'm going to have to reach out to him, see if he'll start interacting with the show again. And He would always say, if you looked at what America did to them during the Korean War, how much we bombed them into oblivion, it should be a shock to nobody how mad North Korea is at Americans. And yet we all tell ourselves that the reason they don't like Americans is because of decades worth of propaganda making them hate us. Again, the American people had nothing to do with it. The American government, I totally get why North Korea would have an issue with them. I am not saying you can't put your arms around people and embrace them and put decades worth of strife behind you. As a progressive, as an anti war leftist, I am actually in favor of that sentiment. I think that is something that we should be doing, but not at the expense of the people that have been our allies for decades. And I said this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. It kind of feels like we're gearing up for another Axis and Allies kind of things, but like we're doing the Axis stuff this time around. Like we're doing the fascism, we have the masked police, we have the other authoritarian governments on our side. We're the ones engaging in austerity politics and extreme border security rather than focusing on social programs, which is what America did in the 1920s or 1930s in order to stave off authoritarianism. America this time around is actually more so embracing it. Um, it just seems like example after example, it's kind of difficult to ignore just how much we're really positioning ourselves. You know what? That's just not happening today. That's fine. Um, on the wrong side of history, and the worst part about that is that we already have the history book. You know what I mean? Like we've already been here. I want you guys to remember this in case I get disappeared over the next 10 years. The 2020s have mirrored the 1920s in a lot of strange ways, in a lot of bad ways that are pretty difficult to ignore. We should start acknowledging that and recognizing that we don't want to go down the same path again. Like I'm predicting a pretty massive collapse in 2029 because our stock market is absolutely propped up by AI and a handful of billionaires. Don't joke about that stuff, CKK. I absolutely am not. Um, it's but I genuinely anticipate that because I've always stated I feel like progressive politics are on the rise. Wisconsin notwithstanding, but I'm never allowed to have nice things. Progressive politics are on the rise in America. And with so much of our stock market controlled by a handful of people that absolutely stand to lose a lot of their wealth in the terms of actually contributing back to the system that allowed them to become that wealthy, I wouldn't put it past them to pull their money out anytime they thought that taxes were going to go up so they could say, see, you elect a progressive and look what ultimately ends up happening to the stock market. I don't put it past them doing that kind of crap for a second. And I have the worst kind of feeling that we're on the precipice of something like that happening again. Hope I'm wrong, but I'm probably not. Let's see. We got a bunch of comments rolling in here. I truly believe America's greatest and truly most important duty now is making Trump take a public cognitive and dementia test. I mean, realistically, I don't think he's losing it to that extent. Like I think he's slower than he used to be for sure. I think this is calculated. I think he's making himself wealthy, and I think we are absolutely in a weaker position than we were when we started, without a doubt. Eljo says, I'd say there's reason to believe he would do it. Yeah, look at that big flirt with North Korea the other day. 1800 says, keep your friends close. I don't know about that attitude. Trump is batshit crazy, and the administration, House, and Senate are to blame for any actions. Well, that is an issue, right? I mean, this is why the system of checks and balances checks out. Trump's approval rating is in the toilet. Um, Republicans are set to have a bloodbath in November, and not a single, well, not a single, very few of them have the guts to actually stand up and say something about it. Eric says he thinks Trump is hopped up on Adderall, which that could be the case. I see Eljo doing Team America there. Leave the World Behind was based on a real Obama administration contingency plan on how to destroy a country from within. I'm not surprised about that. And by the way, you can find audio clips of Barack Obama warning you don't want North Korea to get a nuke, do you? Like, I still maintain, I say it about Iran, I'll say it about North Korea. The only reason you get a nuke is so that America can't bomb you as a form of negotiation. That is what the nuke is for. They're like, hey, if you keep bombing us, we're going to nuke you. And it's like, oh, well, son of a bitch. I guess we have to do diplomacy now. That's probably why Donald Trump is reaching out to North Korea, because we can't use the old tactics against North Korea anymore. And what America, and by extension Israel, is nervous about is that we might not be, if Iran were ever to master that technology, then we would have to deal diplomatically with them. Then when Iran says, hey, Israel, you're not allowed to take Palestinian land, you're not allowed to occupy Lebanon, America is going to be like, look, Israel, I know you want to take all their shit, but they got nukes now. We're going to have to play nice with these guys. But the way they get all of us thinking about it is we better be nervous about Iran getting a nuke. I said this to a friend of mine, and I realize I'm going to be playing in tumultuous waters here, but we're taking it there. There was an alleged assassination attempt on Donald Trump last week. It was like the only story the media wanted to talk about, how they had the video of him kind of changing planes and making it look like he got on the one plane and then he ultimately got on the other plane, and they blew that story up to infinity so that everybody was able to see what was happening there. Who benefits from that? America doesn't benefit from putting that story out there, because if Trump died, some of you would be thrilled, and I get that. I'm not willing to look at it that way. I look at it as the chief, the American president has been assassinated, and there's going to be a tumultuous feeling in this country for the foreseeable future. Iran most certainly doesn't benefit from it. By all accounts, Iran is winning this war right now. We really have no recourse in order to reopen the Strait of Hormuz outside of complete capitulation for what they're asking for, or we're going to continue to see prices going up, and there's going to be political fallout from that as a result. So Iran doesn't benefit from the alleged assassination attempt, not to mention we would nuke them off the face of the earth. Because they don't have a capacity to stop us. Like, that would absolutely be the result. I wouldn't want that to happen, even if they did assassinate the president, but it doesn't matter what I want. I'm telling you what would happen. They would get nuked off the face of the earth. America would be in a state of turmoil for the foreseeable future. Who would benefit from that, though? We all know the answer to that question. I'm not going to say it so that I don't get taken down here, but we all know what ally would ultimately benefit from something like that happening. Nobody else is benefiting from that in that equation. And it's the same idea with the nukes conversation. I am not threatened by Iran getting a nuke, just like I am not threatened by North Korea getting one, just like I'm not threatened by Russia getting one. This isn't rocket science. This is how you engage in diplomacy. You notice how Russia's pissing a lot of America off with the war in Ukraine, but we really can't do anything about it. You know why? Nukes. We need to deal with them diplomatically. As I've maintained for its entirety, and realistically throughout all of human history, most war that has ever been fought has been in the name of access to natural resources, whether it be oil, access to water for drinkability or for a port, or in the 2020s, a lot of these fights have been over access to the rare earth minerals necessary to make semiconductors and the other technology that goes into AI and data centers, which none of us fucking want. It's circular in nature, and the reason why these full-blown wars are going on rather than America just doing the America thing and taking the shit is because of whether or not the country has a nuke. Ecuador, no nuke. What do? We bomb the crap out of them, take their stuff. Russia, nuke. What do? We use we use Ukraine as a proxy. We start a war with them, and we funnel hundreds of billions of dollars at the cost of health care for American citizens. We pretend like we got to do this because democracy is at stake or whatever. We are seeing a trend right now where people are starting to see this for what it is. The internet, for all of its faults, really has allowed us to look overseas and see what it is that other countries are doing. And when you're in a position like America is, we have, by and large, as much as I talk about our failing economy and the paycheck to paycheck nature in which we live our lives and all these different factors that we need to contribute, we are doing better than most of the country. My Republican friends would always say, mostly just to jerk me around, but there is a lot of truth in what they were saying. Be like, Ben, you're in the 1% of the world population. So if you really want to talk about holding the 1% to account, maybe you should look in the mirror. And while they're obviously doing that just to get me to stop talking about taxing their apparently billionaire dads that I'm unfamiliar that they have, there is a lot of truth in that statement. So when I, an American who has most of his needs met, look over at what the people of Iran are going through and what they're saying and their attitudes towards the American people versus the American government, I'm like, oh, these people aren't my enemy. Like, realistically, I would probably be just as mad as they are if I had to put up with the shit that America's making them go through. This isn't a complex feeling to feel. But what Fox News, what Trump, what so much of older politicians bank on is a lot of people, specifically over the age of 50, aren't as online as the people under the age of 50, and you can still prey on those fears. I genuinely believe it's no coincidence that the most socialist America has ever been was at the same time that we were fighting communism. And it was because they wanted to show that capitalism was a system that could build the middle class. So they taxed billionaires, provided a cheap education, provided cheap housing, and made it so it looked like the system that we were operating in would be the most proficient system. As soon as the war on communism ended, we slowly started rolling back all the best parts of American capitalism from the 40s to the 80s. That might be conspiracy theory territory. I can't back that shit up other than the empirical thing that I just pointed out, but it's pretty difficult to avoid that as a reality. I'm just saying. Um, and so to bring this whole conversation full circle, then now with Donald Trump threatening these nukes again, you have to ask yourself, what has Iran done to deserve any of this? Like, I'm not saying I want the Iranian version of Pearl Harbor to happen, but like at least Pearl Harbor, I can understand why in the 40s, with a war that was costing so many people their lives all around the planet and no barometer. Like we had never dropped a bomb like that before. So it was like, okay, look, I'm doing the calculus. I'm not saying I'm defending what took place in Japan. I'm saying I don't know what the right answer was. And I feel like that should be most people's answers, but that's not how Americans talk. I don't know what the right answer was in terms of how we handled Japan in the 40s. But I do know that knowing the aftermath of what took place, we should probably know that we should never pull that kind of shit again. And the idea, again, we're commercial now, so I don't know. But the fact that this post is out there, it's a day old at this point. And the only reason it went live at 8:32, what's today's date? Okay, so it's a day and a half old. 8:32 Sunday night is when that Facebook post went live. And the only reason I know that it happened is because a friend of mine sent it to me. It didn't even make it onto my feed. And I'm not here trying to sane wash Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she's got her own issues. But the complete and obvious lack of coverage, I'd argue almost to the tune of a blackout, means that either she's absolutely full of shit or the powers that be don't want people having this conversation. I'll allow you guys to decide which is which. I have a feeling I have fallen way far behind on the comments here, so let's jump into that. Bernard Taylor is my next boyfriend. He just doesn't know it yet. Good God, don't read that out loud. You can't tell me what to do, Eljo. Deep, troubling times require critical thinking. Shallow surface thinking is not a good strategy. I can't tell if you're accusing me of shallow surface thinking or Trump. Remove the stimulus for delusions and delusions fade. I dig that. Just saw Google bought Spirit Airlines data to train AI for 10 million, includes anonymized passenger records, company emails, chat pricing records. Interesting. Leave the billionaires alone, says Eljo. That is one of the smartest hypothetical statements. Capitalism died with communism. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I've been thinking it for a while because I've been, when you do this for a living, I've got my talking points, but I'm in a perpetual state of reading and learning and picking up new perspectives and new ways of thinking. And oftentimes I would be met with when I would talk about the FDR era, right? Taxes between 70 and 91%, stock buybacks were illegal, unions were strong, antitrust was enforced, and state funds were applied to college to keep the cost of post-secondary or secondary education lower. A lot of Republicans that probably make between $45,000 and $85,000 a year, but thought that I was talking about them when I said tax the rich. For the record, if you're making $1 million and you're listening to me, I'm not even talking about you. Just for the record, when people say tax the rich, if you're sitting there like I made $1 million, ain't nobody on this show talking about you when they say tax the rich. Just to be clear, I feel like that oftentimes gets lost in translation when we're having these kind of talks. But I would be talking about the FDR politics, and they would say, "But Ben, you're leaving out a major component of that period of that era. During that era, the rest of the world was completely blown up by World War II. America really didn't have to compete with other countries around the world, so they could tax like that because where was anybody else going to go?" And what I find interesting about that kind of rhetoric is, so in other words, you're telling me that the only time that capitalism was actually beneficial for people was a fluke. And that as soon as other countries were able to compete, we are now living in the reality of what capitalism is. And that reality is an average home buyer rate, first time home buyer rate of 39 years old. Healthcare bankruptcy rates that are do not exist in any other industrialized nation, hitting higher and higher numbers year over year, regardless of if Democrats or Republicans are in control. If you're telling me that the best argument against the way that I highlight the era between the 40s and the 80s is that it was because there was a once in a lifetime war that left the rest of the countries unable to compete, I don't think that's the shining endorsement of our economic system that people think that it is. So when you stop and look at that era, you think, well, what else was happening between 45 and 83? Well, damn it. Well, realistically, the Cold War, the war on communism, McCarthyism, making sure that nobody wanted to embrace communism. I am not telling you that communism is a good method here. Much like with the American system, you run into the issue of who watches the watchman. If nobody's allowed to be rich, if we all get the same shit, whoever's watching over the shit is ultimately going to determine who gets more and who gets less. It's not a system that I want to be a part of. This is not a shining endorsement of what communism is. But what I am highlighting is that clearly the powers that be knew in the unfettered economic system that we live in today, there would be a whole hell of a lot more people looking for other economic opportunities. Oh, I wonder why so many people are embracing socialism and communism in America in 2026. I'll give you 5 guesses. I'll give you 5 guesses as to why that is. Miss J says, my aunt balked at me thinking tax the rich was on her millionaire status too. Exactly. Like, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting there crying poverty for millionaires, but I don't think for a single second, if you make $1 million, you should be taxed down to 300,000. Like, I can understand where that would be a reverse incentive. Like, that's the problem, is that Republicans and people that demonize people wired like me oftentimes have to straw man our arguments in order to be able to compete with them. Because if people were going out there, like Glenn Grothman said, I played the audio clip on Friday. If anything, I don't think we're doing enough for the wealthiest people. If that were the stance of the Republican Party, they would not be able to win. We got our first commenter of the day and a new commenter at that. Hold on. I got a new phone stand and it's magnetized here. What's on your mind? I got to point you at the ceiling and put you up to the microphone. What's on your mind?
Well, that's fine. How you doing?
All right. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Is it first time calling in?
Yeah. What you want to talk about?
What are we talking about over here?
You TikTok people kill me. It's a lot of things. We're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. You're kind of throwing off the flow of my show here, man. Typically, people call in with something they want to say. Is there something you want to say?
Lefty liberal cocksucker, so I don't want to talk about that.
Oh, okay. Waste of time. Got it. All right. So anyway, really creative, bruv. Just jumping in the chat without a clue. Like that's the funniest part is that, yeah, I'll talk to him. Yeah, exactly. That's the funniest part is that he can't combat against what I said. You're a radical lefty CSer. Okay, great. All I'm doing is describing how America worked between 1945 and 1983. So was America a radical leftist country, or do you just not know how words work? No, you don't get to be here, you little baby. Do you not understand? Oops, sorry. I didn't mean to invite you there, TR. I just accidentally clicked the button. If you don't understand how words work, that's not my problem. But explain to me. Explain to me, like the little boy that you are, was America a radical leftist nation between 1945 and 1983? Or is what I'm describing capitalism with a waistband that allowed for a certain generation, Brian, boomers, boomers, to be able to benefit from higher taxes on billionaires in order for them to start their lives? I'll allow you guys to determine which one of those makes more sense. I will show you not a single ounce of respect. Use homophobic and racial slurs within 15 seconds of being on my show. You're a little pansy. I do not thank you for your service. CS and Liberals makes a great band name. I dig that. IDKY TikTok is so prioritized. It's like elementary school. Yeah, I'll be real with you. I'm like, I love my core TikTok people, and if I've learned anything, you need to diversify your platforms. So I'll always keep it as part of what I'm trying to build here. But YouTube's community in large, even the randos, makes so much more sense than or it's just so much better than anything going on TikTok. Hold on, we got a new guy. Dr. Jeffrey Hollander keeps on asking to join. I'm just going to pick up the whole thing. Are you also going to be a bigot, or you have something important to say? Okay. All right. I'm not going to be taking any more comments on TikTok for the next 20 minutes or so because it looks like a bunch of virgins living in their mother's basement have found outside the box today. Please consider subscribing and continue hanging around. Yeah, dude has alt accounts. I figured that out. Do we have a new person to cyberbully? It seems as though by and large he is mostly if some of my mods can please handle that shit. This isn't a matter of the kind of engagement that I want to see happen. So if some of the mods on TikTok can handle that, I would genuinely appreciate that. But ain't nobody got time for that. Like, if your go-to move is to harass people highlighting that billionaires have consolidated the wealth and then attack racial and LGBTQ minorities because you don't have the capacity to form coherent thoughts, you're kind of giving the game away for the kind of moron that you are. And that's not really, it's not your fault. It seems as though you just had bad parents, and like maybe your parents are pieces of shit. I don't know. I'll never know. But thanks for the follow, El Joe. Even when they hate you, they still drive your numbers up. I don't mind hate. I can handle hate, and I can go toe to toe with any TikTok moron that wants to combat my economic policy like in an antagonistic way. If you disagree with what I'm saying economically, you are more than welcome to do that. You're not allowed to be an asshole about it. And that's kind of my focal matter on it. It's when you're like, if you're saying sexist stuff, my TikTok community is like more than 60% women. If you go in there and start saying anti-women shit, I will sacrifice the engagement in the name of keeping this community a little bit safer. I'm all for expressing your thoughts, expressing your opinions. If your thoughts and opinions are about the N-word, you're too stupid to be taking part in Outside the Box. I promise you, there are lesser programs out there for you if you want to engage in them. But anyway, we've gone way too far off topic at this point to allow him to continue. I want to double check and make sure I'm not missing anybody on the Book of Faces, and then we're going to keep this conversation rolling. But it does highlight to me that on a larger scale, it really feels like we are. Well, let's see here before I do that. They are calling in because they are afraid your common sense might upset them. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, and I mean, again, that's what I realize. I no longer, well, I am paid to do this still, actually, but I'm not at an FCC airwaves anymore. But that's the benefit of doing this professionally, is that especially when it comes to talking about the economic systems that I think prop us up versus holding us down. You're not going to be able to call it, like, you're not going to go toe to toe if, like, your combat is, well, what's a woman? Like, you're going to struggle on this show. And that's a lot of what happens on TikToks, unfortunately. You can go toe to toe unless they want to go at you in any winter sport with your giant ass. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'll give them that. I meant in the political arena is what I'm talking about. Um, Typical Trump supporters. Yeah, I feel that, and I appreciate the compliments there as well. Guy probably works for $22 an hour and thinks unions are stupid. That, honest to God, is the conundrum that we are facing here. Is that guy is uniformly mad because people can't grasp that this is a working class show. This is a show that highlights. I'm going to be starting in 2 weeks. My studio is going to be next door to a plumber. I'm going to be connected to a remodeling. You're going to hear like hammering and loud equipment going on behind me while I'm doing the show. It's working class as it gets. And for some reason, there are elements of MAGAs out there. And that guy is a stereotype. And it pisses me off because I do a show that's like, look, I realize you want to paint all of MAGA as a bunch of inbred morons that don't have a capacity to rationalize for themselves. I'm like, actually, there's a lot of frustration that could be harbored towards the Biden administration. That if you were watching what was happening during the Biden years and life was becoming more unaffordable for you, you could make an argument that you wanted to vote for Donald Trump from a perspective of making your life more affordable and not from an anti-LGBTQ or racist or homophobic or Islamophobic sentiment. And then that guy shows up and all you guys are like, oh, Ben, I thought MAGA was more enlightened than that. And I'm like, no, I get it. Dude's a piece of shit. It doesn't change the fact that those people are still out there. I like watching them struggle. Then I feel like I'm picking on, yeah. I feel that. Pee Wee German, I get what you're saying. But I mean, sucks. It sucks. And it throws off the flow of the show now. Like, that's just very frustrating. I think I've learned a little bit of a lesson there, but we're going to pick up where we left off. So if you're joining us, Marjorie Taylor Greene put out there that she believes and has it on good authority to read the beginning of the statement again. How do I make that go away? There we go. They are discussing using nuclear weapons on Iran in strategy meetings. Yes, you read that correctly. It's real. I'm not speculating. I know. That is how she started off that conversation. DOJ backs Musk in a data center pollution fight. Way to go, David Crowley. Keep digging that hole a little bit deeper. That is what is at the top of the conversation right now. It's crazy to me that this isn't universal, and I think that's intentional. It's crazy to me that this isn't the top of the hour kind of thing, and I think that's intentional. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this all trends in the right direction, but I just have been given no evidence in this administration to believe that it is going to go that way. Which leads us to a bigger point. Trees are cool, says Crowley is insisting on losing this governor's race. I'll tell you what, that's a good pivot, and I'll use that, and then we'll wrap up with the Electoral College talk. I wrote an article for the I'm not big on social media in general. I wrote an article for the Minocqua Brewing Times. I do every Tuesday. Last week I wrote one and I titled it "Vote Blue No Matter Who." Semi-ironically, but I also meant it. I was doing it from a position of assuming that Francesca Hong was going to come out of that race on Tuesday, to be perfectly honest. Notice the shirt. But more so because while I'm anti-data center and anti-school voucher, fundamentally, Crowley, Kelderoy's, and Joel Brennan were close enough to my standards that I was like, all right, uh, let's move on. Well, trees are cool. You should read today's article. Today's article was called Dems, You Gotta Work With Me. And that's what I called it because of the things we talk about on this show all the time. And I'm not going to rehash it. I'm not going to read the article to you guys or anything like that, but it's the things that we always talk about. The idea of compromise. A lot of liberals coming out and saying, look, leftists, your candidate lost. Now it's time to compromise. And you got to come along and vote for Crowley. No, the compromise doesn't end with the primary. The compromise starts at the primary. I am optimistic that Wisconsin is going to set the trend for your candidate wins the primary, and rather than trying to pretend like you're more centrist going forward, they're going to reach back out to the disaffected leftist voters to get them to show up by making concessions from their original platform. I hope I'm right, and I have a good feeling that I am right. Here's why I am saying, though, that I believe that Wisconsin is going to set the trend on that matter. Because as I oftentimes state, I can't do this show in parallel universes. It's like I oftentimes state for you, I believe that Kamala Harris would have also bombed Iran at Israel's behest. I cannot prove that, but I know I'm right. And it's that kind of stuff where it's like, all right, I can't live in a world where Francesca Hong won the primary, so I can't prove that centrists would be acting just as disaffected as leftists are right now. The major difference being that leftists are saying, I don't like the data centers. I don't like the school vouchers. I don't like the funding for Israel. You need to come more towards me on those three issues, and you got my vote. If you cannot commit to these things, then I cannot commit to showing up to vote for you in November. That is the way they're acting. That can piss you off. That can motivate you. Take it whatever way you want it. I'm telling you what it is. Liberals, on the other hand, do the same thing. They're contentious about it. And I even told the story during the paid podcast, which I now do at 8 a.m. on the Minocqua Brewing Time. So I already did my Tuesday one this week. Before Hong lost, when all polling data was pointing to her winning, I had centrists in my DMs saying, I'm not going to vote for Hong unless she's inspiring me. Am I doing this right? Isn't this what you do all the time? And I said, exactly. You're right. It is. Tell me, what is it in Hong's policies that is turning you off? What would you need to see as somebody who trends more centrist, that you would want, that would convince you to show up and vote for her? And oftentimes that's met up with scowling. It's met with frustration. And that's the name of the game. Is if you feel unmotivated by who came out of the primary, it is on you to be vocal and get that candidate to come more towards your side of the argument. That is quite literally politics 101. I do not have the ability to do this show in a parallel universe to prove my point about Hong. But what I can do is move one state over. I'm not going to show the video on TikTok because it dings me for copyright and restricts it. So you're just going to have to deal with the audio of it. But this is Michael LaRosa. He is a Joe Biden staffer, doesn't even live in Michigan, who has gone out of his way to endorse Mike Rogers in Michigan because El Sayed is the candidate. He is not only not voting for the leftist, he is advocating for anybody that will listen to him talk to show up and vote for the Republican. Not only is he doing that, I am going to play a 2-minute clip from C-SPAN where they are getting a call from a person asking a question. As I just highlighted, I can point to the 3 issues that are sticking out about David Crowley that are giving leftists the consternation necessary to wonder whether or not they are going to show up and vote for him in November. And that if he is willing to placate and allow people to hear what it is that like how he's willing to hear them out, that they will show up. And if he pretends like he can't hear them, there's a chance you risk alienating them. And don't worry, centrist voters will inevitably come at you. Listen to this this Biden staffer and the way that he is talking. Actually, let me share it. I don't know what I was thinking. Let me share this with you guys. Excuse me. Let me share this with you guys and the way he's talking about, and then more importantly, because the call goes on for about a minute, the answer, if you know me at all, should infuriate you. Give this a listen.
What kind of a Democratic strategist are you? I mean, you come on a national show and you say that a must-win state like Michigan has an unfit candidate in El Said for Senate. And I can see you saying that maybe in the run-up. You know, I didn't vote for Said. I voted for Stevens. And it's okay. You could have promoted her as well. But now that we're down to the general, and are you trying to get Democrats not to vote for him? You can have your own personal views, which is fine, if you don't like El Said and others. But as a Democratic strategist coming on a national program, I think that's totally unacceptable. And I think that you're doing a disservice. What do you say about
Stanley,
that?
before we talk to Michael, you said you did not vote for Abdul El Said. Will you support him in the general election?
Yes, I most certainly will, which is the reason I'm calling, as I'm calling on the Democratic line. He is not DSA. People try to put him off as DSA. He says he's not DSA. The DSA did not endorse him. And even if he was, I don't understand Michael coming on and doing that. Yeah,
great. Let's get an answer from Michael LaRosa.
Well, I've never supported a Republican in my life for the Senate, for the White House, for Congress. And I don't live in Michigan, so, I mean, my opinion really doesn't matter that much, but I could never support El Sayed for a couple of reasons. One, there's certain things that do transcend politics, that do transcend parties. And that's okay. That's what I was saying. Vote blue no matter who. The problem with that is who still matters. At least it matters to me. And I just come from a time when I watched people jumping out of windows on 9/11, 70 miles from when the towers were falling and burning for 3 months. We could smell it from where I was from in Pennsylvania because of how the wind blew. It's personal to me.
I'm sorry. What the fuck does 9/11 have to do with anything other than the fact that El Sayed is Muslim? Van says blatant Islamophobia. If a Republican did this, imagine the way that you would be reacting. What the fuck is that? What does that even mean? I'm endorsing the Republican because I remember how bad 9/11 was. What the fuck? This is what we're dealing with here. And I am not saying politics with Nick says, don't forget, LaRosa was bad at his job. I don't know a lot about what he did, but I'll take you for that. He needs better talking points. Phil, I'll do you one better. He needs any fucking talking points. He needs any talking points. What the hell does that mean? I am going to vote for the Republican. Vote blue no matter who, but the who still matters. I'm sorry, that absolutely runs contrary to what I have been told as a progressive for the last 10 years. I have been told that the who absolutely does not matter, and that it is a matter of making sure that you show up and turn out and make sure that the Republican does not come away with a victory. I cannot live in an alternate reality where both Francesca Hong won and lost to prove my point. But I can look elsewhere. I can look to Mamdani's victory. I can look to El Sayed's victory. I can look to the coalescence around the Thanksgiving narrative while ignoring all the obvious benefits to a Hong governorship that were elevated by the media and political establishment. As I told you guys yesterday, Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, is campaigning with Crowley right now and not doing anything to assist El Sayed. And the most recent poll came out and it shows Mike Rogers winning within the margin of error. And all the Democrats are like, see, this is why we should have gone more moderate. Or maybe you should do the vote blue no matter who bullshit you guys always scream about every single year. And then here in Wisconsin, I get attacked for saying I'm going to vote for the fucking guy, but then I'm not going to tell you guys to show up and vote for him. When people play these games, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. If you believe vote blue no matter who actually makes sense, cool. Live it. Breathe it. Embody that attitude. If you are anti vote blue no matter who, you have your right to not vote for a candidate, and then you don't get mad when a centrist doesn't show up and vote for your candidate. As long as you are consistent. I did not vote for Hillary Clinton. I thought she was a pile of trash. When people say, Ben, I'm not going to vote for Hong. I'm not going to vote for El Sayed. I'm not going to vote for Bernie Sanders. I think he's a pile of trash. She's a pile of trash. I'd say, cool. Explain to me why you think that. What policy are you hearing from progressives that you don't want to hear? Because I'm going to be real. The Al Sayed platform is basically the Democratic platform, except for he doesn't take pharmaceutical dollars and he wants our funds to stop going to Israel. Those are the two things that stick out about him. And this guy is willing to elect Rogers, which, again, remember, democracy is at stake. Donald Trump's a fascist. We got to band together to defeat fascism. But if the guy that's going to defeat fascism isn't going to allow me to become rich off of the suffering of millions of Americans, then I think I'd rather just do fascism. This is the uphill battle that the Democrats have to push back against. Let's see here. 9/11. Should I bring up the incompetent nincompoop who sat down here in Florida and was reading a children's book and did nothing? Yeah. For 8 minutes, Juba. By the way, I haven't posted the link. I'm like, my mind's all over the place these last couple days. There's the link for anybody that wants to join. Let's see what we have here for comments. La Rosa was working for Jill Biden. That's just 3 apex in a suit. El Sayed was born in America. He's an American. Those Dems need to be ousted harshly. They are turncoats. That's so maddening. I hope Wisconsin and Michigan can stop Republicans. They couldn't find anything better to attack Hong with other than Thanksgiving. Yeah, culture war bullshit. I read about that yesterday. For some reason, it came to mind. Bush didn't want to startle the kids he knew before he entered the classroom. That's interesting. Democrats always going to Democrat. Support every blue candidate as long as they are handpicked by the party to toe the line. Well, that's the problem, right? Herb says, I'm behind the live feed this morning. Hashtag not all boomers. Yeah, no, it's all right. It's all right. What do you mean no cameras, Eljo? What does that mean? You don't have to use a camera if you want to take part. You can just click this. You can click the little camera logo when you're creating a thing and it won't put your face on the screen. Plenty of people have used that before. There's a little camera and a little microphone. Make sure the microphone isn't clicked, but as long as you click the camera, it'll just be a blank screen and you're more than welcome to join that way, if that's in fact what you are saying. I don't belong to an organized political party, says Farrags. I belong to the Democratic Party. Yeah, I feel that. Too many old politicians. We need an influx of youth. Well, even that in and of itself, hold on. I recently came across that data. Who percentage of people who say more young people in office would make better politicians? 75% of Democrats, 53% of independents, 33% of Republicans. Like, realistically, at this point, Republicans are just scared of the passage of time. I think that's their biggest enemy in politics these days. A two-party system makes no sense. I totally agree with that. And we're going to get into the Electoral College a little bit later on, but I totally agree with that. If we really want representation, we have to go into a ranked choice voting. And the reason why ranked choice voting isn't more prevalent is because progressives would win, and Democrats and Republicans know that. Every decision stems from the fact that they want to prevent this country from shifting to the left. Every single decision that they ultimately end up making stems from that reality. Deanne's wondering how much AIPAC is paying La Rosa. Probably not even that much. I was disillusioned from that when I learned how much the NRA was paying different politicians to like always vote in favor of no gun legislation whatsoever. And there's people, I mean, it's smaller offices, but they're like, here's $850. Never vote your conscience. And people are like, yeah, that tracks. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, guys. That's not even that many hot and readies. Don't dream it, be it, says Cassandra. By the way, Jarman, he says the shows this week have been fire. For anybody who's new here, who's not commenting, if you could click that subscribe button, especially on YouTube, that would go a long way to helping me out. We're about just under 150 subscribers away from getting to my goal of complete monetization here on the app. So if you're in a position to do so, it doesn't cost you any money. I will have paid subscribers soon enough, but it'll always be free. So if anybody wants to help out some independent media, that would go a long way to helping me out. I do this show. I have a couple of sponsors, including Tim Roush Plumbing, plumbing and remodeling company. The Fox Valley depends on 920-830-9222. That's a free text line as well. If you have any questions about your plumbing concerns before the plumber even comes out there, go ahead and use that. But outside of that, I'm absolutely independent media, working on a couple of other sponsors here as well. It'll be starting up in September. But please do click that subscribe button if you like what you're hearing here. But Ben measures the quantity of Little Caesars pizza. Value by quantity of Little Caesars pizza. That's how I make decisions. Yes. You know how many hot and readies I can get with that? That's how I answer questions. Selling out is bad. Selling out for a pittance is weak. Well, KG, I don't remember when you found the show. I believe it was post-Trump, but please correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like you've been part of my life for a long time at this point. Yeah, and please do tap on TikTok. We're only at 3,000 likes. But I would oftentimes say that about the Democratic Party. I would say Democrats take money from billionaires just like Republicans do. They just take way less money from billionaires. So that's not a matter of principle. They're just worse at negotiating. Is the difference. And that was kind of a running theme that I had on my show. It's the same idea. Okay, summer of 24. Nice. Remember Hot and Now, the burger place? Man, they were cheap. You get tons of those. I don't remember that, honestly. Are you going to be contractually obligated to make a certain number of plumbing puns per show once you are in the new studio? Look, I don't want to flush the quality of this show down the drain, so I don't think I'm going to be doing that kind of stuff, but we'll just have to wait and find out, I suppose. The vote blue no matter who crowd. Vote blue no matter who, as long as it's my blue MAGA candidate. Otherwise, I'm going back to red MAGA. Well, that's kind of the whole gist of it. Is it not? And realistically, that's to a certain extent the way the progressives carried themselves. I am not saying this from my soapbox, from a perch that progressives are better. I'm saying it from we were demonized for a decade for not wanting to play ball immediately after our candidate lost. And now we have centrists saying, you know, Republicans are bad, but isn't 9/11 just a little bit worse? There's an episode of Community where they run for the president of the community college, and Jeff Winger he basically says that in his campaign speech. He's like, I believe women should be hot and beer should be cold. I think 9/11 was bad. And freedom, well, freedom's just a little bit better. And like that was supposed to be mocking the concept of politics, and the further along I go, the more I realize that's just what it is. Oh no, I realized I did it, guys. I realized that was a pun. I realized that I did it. I'm quite good at this media thing, you know? I don't want to toot my own horn. Probably shouldn't have been fired. Like, let's just be real. Probably shouldn't have been fired. I'm pretty good at the job. Yeah, okay. Eljo gets me. Thank you, Eljo. We really are at the old men yelling at clouds stage of government. Well, it's because they're running out of shit. Trump is no longer scary. And here's the thing, to bring it into the world that I know most, Marvel, Donald Trump is a Thanos equivalent. There were like between 19 and 21 movies that led up to Thanos being introduced. And it would slowly escalate. Then Thanos shows up and he's like, I just killed half of all existence by snapping my fingers. And the Avengers all get together. They come back together. They bring everybody back from the dead. And then they stop Thanos in the second half of the second movie. And then it goes to like Spider-Man fighting Mysterio in Europe. And it's like, uh-oh, Mysterio is going to like confuse me a little bit. And it's like, you know, after I watched Spider-Man fight an alien that snapped half of life out of existence, it's hard for me to take any of these other threats particularly seriously. Donald Trump is Thanos. He was scary enough to get people like me to show up in 2020 and in 2024. And even though I knew Joe Biden and Kamala Harris didn't mean business, I was like, yo, this guy's going to snap people out of existence if I don't show up and make sure that I can stop this stuff. Where does that go in 2028? Because I'll tell you right now, the Doom marketing for the Avengers movie coming out in December doesn't have me feeling like he's a bigger threat than what Thanos is. I realize some comic nerds will tell me that's wrong, but I'm saying I'm not there. They have shot their wad with this Trump thing, and now whoever comes up next, in all likelihood, is going to look sane relative to what Trump has been the last decade. By that time, will have been a dozen years. And they're going to have to actually run on policy again. Meanwhile, progressives are actually running on policy and unseating Democrats all over the place right now. And that trend is only going to continue the closer we get to 2028 and beyond. By 2030, I think you're going to see Congress having a completely different makeup than what you're dealing with today. That is why it feels like we're in the old men yelling at clouds phase, because we are not scared of what Trump is anymore. Trump is in office, and there's nothing that we can do about it. He's making our lives a living hell. He is throwing a mass Virgin Army. What's up, Carlos? Where he has the mass Virgin Army running around unaliving police and making immigrants' lives a living hell. But at this stage of the game, there's not a goddamn thing that we can do about it. All there is what is the plan going forward? Carlos is talking about capitalist policies over on my TikTok chat. Both parties are advertising those, and neither one of those are going to get us out of where we need to be. And I'd argue, in all likelihood, Carlos would probably tell you that the people that are winning, the even self-described progressives and socialists in his world, probably don't even go far enough still in addressing a system that has left so many of us behind. That is why you're seeing the La Rosas of the world come out there and say, I think El Sayed is bad because I hate 9/11. Eljo says then convict and remove. Never going to happen. They want to dangle that carrot in front of you so that you keep voting for Democrats, and they will never do it. You want to know why MAGA loved outside the box between 2022 and 2024? It's because when MSNBC and CNN wouldn't shut the fuck up about the Trump trials, and when Fox News and all of right-wing media wouldn't shut up about defending Donald Trump and the obvious guilt that he had, I was sitting there talking about the cost of eggs in 2023. I was sitting there telling you that Biden's economic policies in 2023 were going to result in a loss in 2024 unless the Democrats got their shit together and got their shit together in a quick fashion. And so Republicans were willing to show up. Democrats were more than happy to give you wall-to-wall coverage about arresting Donald Trump because they knew it would never happen, and it was something to talk about that wasn't the obviously failing economy and corporate greed that was leaving so many of us behind. And I'm telling you right now, if Democrats get a trifecta in 2028, which may very well happen, they're going to flood the airways with Nuremberg-style trials for ICE agents and the idea that they're going to hold Donald Trump to account and give you very little economic relief or wartime relief in a Trump era, because that is how they operate. I don't know this for a fact, but I'd be willing to bet my house on it that that is ultimately where these guys are headed. And so would convicting him do something? Maybe. But it's not going to happen. I think a lot of ICE agents will get arrested, and good. But Eljo says, I'm no longer content to have them put in prison. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Van says, I want both. I got an investment property, Violet. Mind your business. Don't convict and remove. Have an unfortunate equipment failure. Yeah. Trump is destroying the entire world. Well, Tom, I don't know if you missed the first 40 minutes, but I kind of covered quite a bit of that. I kind of feel like we're joining the Axis. Like we're watching the Axis and Allies join again, and we're not joining the Allies this time around. I want to erase Trump's name from everything. I mean, again, all of this is nice to haves. If Democrats want to do that while also taxing billionaires into oblivion, cool. If Democrats want to do that while also enacting Medicare for all, cool. If they're going to march Hakeem Jeffries out there to tell you Medicare for all isn't happening, vote for us, Republicans are a threat, you're going to have issues. But don't worry, we're going to hold Donald Trump to account. Don't give a shit. Do something about healthcare costs, you shill. Apex Shakur, as Juba oftentimes refers to him as. Cool. I will post the link again. You should do that, Eljo. I'd be happy to have him on. Erasing Trump's name is red meat. Again, if I were older and this is so hard to have this conversation because realistically, my ducks are in a row. Like, I'm doing all the right things that you're supposed to do. But so many of my peers don't have that. And so if per capita you're over the age of 50 and you own your home and you're student debt free and you have a decent savings and you lived your life and you raised your kids if you wanted to have kids, I get why erasing Donald Trump's name is such a focal point for people like that. I'm telling you right now, if you're under 45, I would put Donald Trump's name on everything if it meant making sure that not a single American ended up going broke from medical debt again. 100%. I would be like, where else can I etch Donald Trump's name? Because he ushered in a complete ending to all medical debt. That is where my mind is. That is the way outside the box is wired. And I think fundamentally that is the biggest difference between liberals and progressives. I am not uniquely scared by what Donald Trump is. I am uniquely pissed off that Democrats found a way to lose to an orange carnival barker with no ideas 2 out of 3 times. And they're willing to blame progressives for not showing up and not look inward and be like, what is it about us that isn't making people show up to vote for us, and they would rather vote for whatever the fuck this is that we're dealing with? That should be the question that they're asking themselves, and they're not willing to ask themselves this. I want him to feel as exhausted, burnout, and hopeless as he made me feel the last decade. All right. Let's not erase Trump and let him die in obscurity. There you go. Plaster his name as a fascist and a failure all over the place. But I mean, even Mitch McConnell said it. They asked him, are you worried about your legacy? When he was blocking all of Obama's policies and Obama's Supreme Court candidates, they asked him, are you worried about your legacy when you leave politics? And his answer was, why would I care? I'll be dead. You need to grasp that that's how these people look at it. Like, oh, history is going to remember you. Great. The president's going to remember me as rich and enjoying every single day of my life. I don't give a shit what history remembers me as. I'll be dead. Like, I do think that's an important message to bring home here. By the way, my the beginning of my college tour is scheduled, and I swear to God, guys, I didn't do this intentionally, but the first college I'm stopping at is going to be UWO, and it's going to be on September 10th, which ironically enough will be the 1-year anniversary of the death of Charlie Kirk. I didn't intentionally do that, but I do think it's kind of ironic. I did not, Jay. Don't you put that on me. I didn't even know. I didn't even know the day he died because I'm not a weirdo. So I didn't even know when that happened. It just so happens. So anyway, we're going to call it Outside the Box Turning Point. I kind of agree with you, Jim says. However, there must be accountability at the top. Let's change the program that's been in place since the Civil War. Just move on. So is so fucking counterproductive. Turning up. Oh, might be stealing that. I'll credit you though, Carlos. But I like that. I like that. And by the way, man, this is open talk. Anytime 9 to 11, you want to jump on and get your thoughts heard, you're more than welcome. I told you that when we were at that Green Party event together. But anytime you want to hop on and comment on what I'm saying, just ask to jump on and I'll bring it up. But you're always more than welcome. Brian says, I just want him to scurry away and crawl back under a rock he came from. Right on, dude. No worries. And maybe 4 years removed, he goes broke from tax evasion. Again, any of these outcomes are fine. I just want whoever replaced him to actually make plays for people under the age of 45 that have just been struggling to get by. Like, I don't think it's that much to ask. Leave this guy behind because you know what? Whoever is running next is going to have a lot of Trump's policies, and it's going to speak to a population of people that just really fucking hate Mexicans. Like, and we can call them stupid and bigots and arrogant and oblivious and whatever the hell other adjective you want to put on there. But it doesn't change the fact that there are a lot of them out there and they don't see themselves reflected in another party. So reflect other people in another party. And you know what? I see people looking at Francesca Hong on the right, and they were like, well, I thought she was outside of the establishment, but she's in favor of killing babies, so I guess I'm voting for Tom Tiffany. Those guys are lost forever. Stop worrying about it. Just speak to the people that are working, that are doing the things, that went to school, that educated themselves and are in mountains of debt, that didn't educate themselves and found themselves diagnosed with a terrible illness that ultimately ended up rendering them bankrupt, despite the fact that they've done all the right things their whole life. And we're the only country where that happens. Speak to those people. I promise you, you will come away with a win when it's all said and done. Don't wear a lapel mic. You know that Candace Owens thinks Charlie's mic was rigged with explosives. Well, you know what's funny? I saw like the Candace walkthrough of, I watched that debate where she debated that dude. I don't even know who that guy is, but he seems like a moron. He seems like he's very well suited to like tell women why they belong in the kitchen and nothing else. Like he's really not equipped to have intellectual debates. I don't even know who I'm talking about. He just seemed like an ass. But so I'm listening to Candace Owens' rundown, and it's so funny because I have not followed along with Charlie Kirk stuff at all in terms of like people are skeptical about whether or not this kid did it or not. But like in her explanation, what killed me the most is she starts off, she's like, so we're supposed to believe that he woke up before 4 a.m. That's how she starts. We're like, we're supposed to believe he set an alarm and woke up before 4 a.m. and drove 6 hours to the event to be there at this time. And I'm like, yes. Like, if you're going to go assassinate somebody, I don't think the idea of getting up super early would be like, I thought I could pull this off, but I'm more of a night owl. Like, I don't think she could have had the most compelling evidence ever, which, by the way, in the debate, I have seen that she says at one point, I have no evidence to back up my claim. So even though she dog walked that dude, I'd argue that she really didn't do a good job either. She just knows a lot of the facts about the case, but she doesn't have any evidence to back up the claim that it wasn't the Tyler kid that they're saying that it was. Again, I don't have a dog in the fight. If it turns out he didn't do it, I am not saying that the government is above making people a patsy. I'm saying give me something to lean into here. And the idea that the main thrust of it was how early he woke up, and then he stayed up for 25 hours, no sleep. He's up for 25 hours. I'm like, I've done that all the time. I've done that to cram for exams in college. You're telling me that nobody would be willing to do this after you've just executed one of the most prominent right-wing voices in America and there's an entire countrywide manhunt after you? You don't think you'd be ginned up with a little bit of excitement and struggle sleeping? Is that so far out of the realm of possibility? I don't think so. Like, I was just listening to the rundown and I was like, this is nonsensical. This is nonsensical that this is what people spend their time on. Blows my mind. Robin says abolish all of his executive orders. I think that's the standard in American politics now. You get into office and undo all the executive orders from the previous regime. Shit, Trump showed up and got rid of the executive orders that like made baggage fees go away and got rid of overdraft fees. Like, nothing good came from him eliminating the executive orders, and all the MAGAs showed up like the trained seals that they are and start clapping, Joe Biden, bad. Crazy. Just crazy to me. So I don't know how we ended up on Charlie Kirk, but to bring it full circle here again, let me check the book of faces here really quickly before we 9/11 happened during Bush, and as I recalled, he helped the Saudis get out of the country with their money. I believe so. Can I comment on your pipes, or is that harassment? You mean my vocal pipes, Deanne, or D? Trump's DOJ and Supreme Court are making sure he, his business, his families, and cronies are all untouchable. Waste of time to go after them, although the vindictive me would like to give all their money to trans athletes. Here's the thing with it. I wish that the Democratic establishment went after Zuckerberg and Musk and Gates and fill in the blank here and Reid Hoffman and all of the other billionaires in this country as hard as they went after Donald Trump. Some of you probably aren't going to like this take, but I used to say it all the time. Is Donald Trump and his trials during the Biden years, is that political or is he guilty? And the answer to that question is yes. He's guilty because obviously he's fucking guilty. Have you ever seen Donald Trump? But it's also political because when they're getting him on mortgage fraud, if you do not believe that every single wealthy person is inflating the cost of the real estate that they own in the name of being able to increase the amount of money they can borrow, because for the non-white people in the audience, when you take a loan out like that, you can then use that loan as a tax write-off so that you end up not owing any taxes, and it's all legal on the other side of things. If you think Donald Trump is the only billionaire doing that, I have another thing coming. And so when you're sitting there turning over every stone trying to nail Donald Trump, that says to me that you were threatened by him politically and looking for a criminal reason to nail him. Do I think he was guilty of the stuff they were accusing him of? Abso-fucking-lutely. Absolutely, I do. But if I were inclined to support him, it would not take a lot for me to be like, oh well, when you look at what they're accusing him of and what they're saying he's guilty of, I'd be hard pressed to believe that there aren't plenty of other people doing the exact same thing. You know what I mean? And I see Eljo saying, I'm fine with that. I'm not even saying if you listen outside the box, you're probably fine with the idea of hitting every billionaire. The fact is, Democrats weren't. That's always their go-to line. They're always like, they sat on the Epstein files too. You know what I mean? And if Kamala Harris won, the Epstein files would have been released. Still nobody would have been arrested. And MAGA would be nonstop talking about it every single day. I talked about this yesterday. The message discipline in right-wing media is so much stronger than the message discipline in liberal media and left-wing media. If I really wanted to do the right-winger shtick, I would never drop the Epstein files. You would tune in every day and you'd be like, I wonder what email we're going to do a deep dive into to learn more about the Epstein files today. And I would talk to you about it every day. And I'd say, these Republicans are the worst. They're hiding this. The victims deserve respect and justice. And I believe all of that stuff. But if I talk about the same story for multiple days in a row, I go absolutely nuts. Right-wingers in a world where Kamala Harris were president would not shut the fuck up about the Epstein list for 4 straight years. And that's the difference between the two media infrastructures. They're not above it. What wants to say? Put him in a cage on Fifth Ave and let people throw fruit at him. You know, my TikTok listeners are good at throwing fruit. And everyone is exhausted by their never-changing grievances, says Joseph. Well, honestly, Joseph, like, their grievances are like always the same. Like, they've been bitching about trans athletes for like 9 years, bitching about CRT, affirmative action, and DEI. Like, those are all just variations of saying, I get mad when I see black people with jobs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not really that diverse in their frustration with the system and what's out there. I don't think it's hard to keep up with them. I just think it's nonstop. It's nonstop every single day. After Benghazi happened, for 2.5 years, Benghazi was on Fox News every single day. Is there a story that's on the news for 3 days in a row with Donald Trump? Maybe like ballroom bullshit. You know what I mean? But not stuff like that. Because they're dumb. Well, if the justice system wasn't two-tiered or more, then we wouldn't have to do political lawfare because the system would work in the first place. Well, you know, when I was flying to Thailand at the beginning of the year, I sat next to a South Korean guy who was a couple years younger than me. And he's like, yeah, when our president got caught doing corruption, the whole country stormed, and he's like sentenced to death right now. I'm like, oh, well, that must be nice. Must be nice. China does that too. Again, I feel like I've been advocating for communism a lot this show. Not advocating that we should become China, because obviously people can fabricate stories about you, but I am saying there is something to be said about if your politician gets found engaging in corruption while they are in office, they end up getting the death penalty. Something tells me that people might be a little more representative of the public's concerns. You know, in China, they have a 90% home ownership rate. And you know what Americans say? Like, I bet those homes are this big. And then what happens in America? We say, in order to buy a home, you need to have, it's going to cost you over $400,000. The average cost to own a home, you need to make $114,000 a year. And those same Americans that say communists have homes because they're all tiny would tell you, well, that's because Americans want homes that are too big. There is no fucking consistency of thought within the American population with a lot of this kind of stuff. And oftentimes when you hear the scary C words like communism, it tends to make a lot of the deductive reasoning go out the window there. But it is funny to watch that stuff happen. Yeah, Reptoid says, not just POTUS. Every oath sworn official needs to be held to the military code of justice like standard, in addition to civil laws, and the rest of us are subject to. I maintain, I posit this all the time, but I don't have any rationale behind it. But here's the order of things that happened. Bob Menendez was a Democratic senator who was found guilty of bribes. He was found so guilty of bribes that he is in jail right now. Moments before he went to jail, it was announced that his daughter, Alicia Menendez, would become a full-time anchor on MSNBC. All of those things happened in the same time period. I find it hard to believe that the only elected official in America receiving bribes was Bob. I'm not defending Bob Menendez. Seems as though he was guilty of what he was accused of and should be in jail. But I am saying I find it hard to believe that he is the only person that is guilty of that. Moreover, I find it hard to believe that his daughter would be promoted to a multi-million-dollar occupation the moments before this happened. And then, of course, and I don't begrudge her for this at all. I would do the exact same thing. She did not cover the story at all. It never appeared on her show. And I was the first person to say when Chris Cuomo got fired for not highlighting his brother's corruption when he was the governor of New York, I said, if I were a national news anchor and my brother were doing something illegal, you would never fucking hear a word of it out of my mouth. And if you're like, well, Ben, that's not the job. All that says to me is you hate your sibling. Doesn't say anything about me as a person. I'm right. It says something about you and your relationship to the family members in your life. So when Alicia Menendez didn't cover it, I'm not judging that whatsoever. But those are the kind of circumstantial things that make me wonder, like, what did he do that he got arrested for it while the rest of these people? Why is Kirsten Sinema able to receive a $750,000 campaign donation from the pharmaceutical lobby and then immediately go and vote to kill a bill that would allow the government to negotiate the price of all drugs, ultimately resulting in only 10 drugs having their prices reduced? Why is that not a bribe, but what Bob Menendez did was? And those are the kind of questions we should be asking, but how do we have time to ask it? I heard Legos put a rainbow on one of their sets. Republican voters can't explain CRT and they don't realize DEI programs are largely used to aid veterans. I don't care who they're used to. Like, I'll be real, guys. Like, well, we're going to segue. The whole concept of DEI, CRT, any of that kind of stuff. Here's what I'll tell you. I don't hold Woodward to the same standard as Odyssey Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got a pretty decently sized black community, and there were not a lot of black people working at the radio station there. Nobody black was on WHBY, but like also it's not the same thing. I'm just going to be real. I've seen the population here. I'm not saying there's no black people here. I'm not saying there's nobody qualified to do radio that's black in Northeast Wisconsin. I'm saying you have a much smaller pool that you're operating with here relative to where I was. When I sold copiers, anytime I would hand out publications, like I would have drop-off stuff, and our, stock photo was a bunch of people working at Rico, and it was one white guy, one white woman, a black guy, an Asian woman, and a Hispanic woman. The most diverse group ever. And then you'd come to the Pittsburgh office, and it was 17 white guys and one white woman, and that was the block there. I am not saying that it was a concerted effort to not employ a lot of black people. I'm saying we probably could course correct a little bit. Maybe we might course correct a little too far at times, but I'm fine to overswing for a little bit. Be like, all right, rein it back in, rein it back in. I was told when I was filling in Pittsburgh and a full-time producer that I would never get my own show because white people can't get jobs anymore because DEI has ruined that. I mean, don't get me wrong, they took that job from me, but they didn't give it to a black person. They were just upset that I was upsetting the status quo. Eljo, you're going to need to keep it in your pants surrounding Bernard Taylor. I'm going to look this guy up. You know what? Let's see who Eljo's crush is here. I'm going to weigh in. I'm going to let you know if this guy's worth our time or not. Bernard Taylor. Yeah, all right, I get it. Waste of tax dollars on the gilding of Washington, D.C. I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. There is not wait, okay, hold on, I'm way behind you. I couldn't pull anything up with that name. I don't even know what name you're talking about. Oh, okay. There's nothing behind the curtain. Government is a money laundering scam. That's why Trump is shutting down USAID and other fraud. No, he isn't, Emily. I feel like you might be living in a bit of a bubble there. If you really want to talk about fraud, the Defense Department hasn't budged past an audit in the last either 6 or 8 years, and yet he wants to double the defense budget. There's between 60 and 100 billion dollars of Medicare Advantage fraud every single year. That's the public-private partnership within Medicare that is over-prescribing healthier individuals and under-prescribing sick individuals to the tune of $100 billion. Not only was that not cracked down on, it wasn't even looked at. What the Trump administration did was cut off food programs. And don't get me wrong, USAID was imperialist in nature. They did what every great program in America does, a whole bunch of horse shit, but some very good public-facing shit. And it makes you ask the question, are you willing to get rid of that good public-facing stuff in the name of cracking down on some of the imperialist natures of that operation, and then allow you to decide? But based on your summation of the matter, something tells me that you really haven't looked into it that way and just kind of put the hose in your mouth and gargle it down the way so many of the MAGAs tend to do. And I hope you'll continue listening to Outside the Box and wake up from that, but we'll see what happens. He cut off money to food pantries in America. Exactly. Like the idea that this guy's doing anything about fraud is a laughable assertion. And if Republicans are going to parrot those kind of things, then let's get out of here. No, again, Joseph, you're hearing what you want to hear. I said there are good. Oh my God, you people. Joseph, who I think we might have a blue MAGA in the troop here, saying, I'm not sure how imperialist AIDS clinics are, but sure. Again, there were positive things, and they also use these things to initiate. It was soft power is what it was. It was keep allowing us access to this, keep doing these things for us, and we'll keep some of your population a little bit healthier than they would be without us here. You know what's funny is China does the same thing to countries around the nation, and we view that as a threat. Why do we view the Chinese version of USAID as a threat when it's supposed to be nothing but good-natured intentions? That gives the game away, right? It's because we know what we are doing with it. We know what China is intending to do with it. And our media portrays one of them as a negative and one of them as a net positive. Robin, not a goddamn thing is wrong with the AIDS program in South Africa. Don't allow Blue MAGA to distract you from the point here. What's wrong with China going to build a well in an African country? Nothing, right? Can we all agree China building a well in Africa is not a bad thing? Okay, good. Go look at the American coverage of China building that well, and you guys tell me what is happening there. I await your response. They absolutely are shutting down Medicare fraud. They absolutely are not. They absolutely are not. Here's a fun fact. Emily, I'm going to reach out an olive branch, and something tells me you're going to take it out of my hand and break it in half. When the Democrats had a trifecta, Mark Pocan, I do this show in Northeast Wisconsin. Mark Pocan is the House of Representatives member for Madison. He put together a report. That's the report I'm emphasizing. Realistically, when I say between 60 and 8 and $100 billion in Medicare Advantage fraud per year, those numbers might be underestimating by the time we get to 2026 here. He presented this to a Democratic establishment, a Democratic trifecta, and said, look at what Medicare Advantage is doing to us. This is tax dollars. This is tens of billions of tax dollars going into the handful of a couple of private entities. What are we going to do to crack down on this? And the Democratic establishment said, well, I don't think anything, but what we can do is have a vote on whether or not we're going to change the name of Medicare Advantage so that people don't confuse it with traditional Medicare. And the Biden administration proposed changing it to ACO REACH. I can't remember what ACO stood for. And it failed. It failed with a Democratic trifecta. So not only did they not do anything about the fraud, they couldn't do anything even about changing the name. Flash forward to 2026, and you guys want to bitch about the Somalis and nothing else. Actually, Emily, I hope you're still here, because now you've kicked me into real outside the box mode. As Justin refers to it as, I think we're about to benjitsu this conversation a little bit here. There it is. There it is. Eljo, welcome to a show that isn't here to propagandize and actually wants to have the conversation. There's Medicare and Medicaid Advantage fraud in 2025. During the Trump years, Emily, $14.6 billion in Florida, $7 billion in Texas, $1.2 billion in Arizona, $218 million in Minnesota going to the Somalis. Now, I'm sure you're not a racist, Emily. So why is it that you believe the Trump administration is cracking down on $218 million of Medicare fraud, not Medicare Advantage, not the private part of Medicare that is obviously fleecing us? They didn't even look at the goddamn Defense Department. Why is it that you think, because I'm sure you're not a racist, Emily, why is it that you think he's cracking down on $218 million in Medicare Advantage fraud, but not $14.6 billion in Florida? Waka waka, MAGA. I think you might have stepped in it this time. Anywho. Nick Swirly brings his mom with him on jobs so he can breastfeed on his lunch breaks. I feel that. I call him Stick Stickly or Nick Swirly. And here's actually a really fun fact about that while we're here. Hold on, Bob. I haven't had a chance to look into this yet, but leaked documents claim Nick Shirley's rise to fame was a White House op. I haven't had a chance to actually listen to what's going on in that there, so I'm not reporting that as a fact yet, but I also don't deny that that's probably likely. A little bit of a typo on CKK there, Phil, but that's all right. Okay, so Emily's an idiot. Good to know. I thought that was the case. Violet gives me shit for embracing you people. Make sure you like and subscribe. Was it the Somalis that were accused of eating cats and dogs? No, that was the Haitians, actually. Phil in Oshkosh wanted to say CKK, and he put an O in there and changed one of the K's to a C, and it's killing me. I know it was an accident, but it's killing me. I can't say the word, but just know that I'm dying. Now we're cooking. The good old outside the box with swearing. Yeah, we're getting there. We're kicking back into gear here for that. So the source is the Minnesota Post. Emily, I'm sure no matter what source I tell you, it's going to be fake news. Am I correct that the Minnesota Post is fake news by your estimation? Let me save you the typing. It's fake news. I'll ruin that for everybody else. Nick Sorter and Cam Higbee are Israel funded. I'm not surprised. Sorry, can't keep my racism straight. It's hard to keep track. I actually called into the Dan O'Donnell show one time, and I said that Roseanne Barr said something very racist. He's like, well, obviously you don't have your facts right because it wasn't racist. It was about trans people. And I'm like, sorry, it's hard for me to keep the bigotry straight sometimes. And he was not a fan of that one there. Somali were taking over one of the northern Midwestern states, not eating our pets. I know it's hard to keep the racism straight these days. Yeah, okay. I thought you were being serious for a second, and I was ready to pounce, but okay, I can tell there was an aura of sarcasm in that message, so I will allow that. Violet is letting me know that I could be getting baited, possibly. The fraud perpetrators are often government officials. See Scott and DeSantis, that being Rick Scott, of course, who engaged in $1 billion worth of Medicare Advantage fraud. And something tells me Emily's bigoted ass probably doesn't care about that one. Like and subscribe, Emily. Everybody, click that subscribe button. We're live 9 to 11, Monday through Friday, doing realistically the best talk radio in Northeast Wisconsin. So good that some stations can't even handle it. Are we going to mention Minnesota fraud ringmaster was a white woman and not Somali? No, that counters my point. Or the fact that you could multiply the amount of fraud by, not 100, but by 10, and Texas and Florida would still dwarf any of the fraud that was going on in Minnesota. But again, it's not about the fraud. It's about the racism. Waka waka. Fucking. All right. But in any event, I got more to say here. Let's see where we're at there. Okay, good. So, what was the main thrust of the point that I was even trying to make here? Where did we start this? I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. I'm going to keep going. Let's end it with a bang, shall we? 15 more minutes left. Let's bring it back into the world of educational again. For those of you that weren't listening to Ben After Dark, which what the fuck? Like what? You guys don't have 3 hours a day to commit to me? I did say thrust. I was trying to think of a plumbing pun there. Nothing came to mind immediately, but we'll get there. We were talking about the Electoral College at the during Ben After Dark. Goddamn magnet. There we go. And I didn't realize how damning the statistics were. So this is the swing states and who gets visited during presidential campaigns. And 7 states get 94% of the visits. 18% of the population, 94% of the votes, or of the visits. Now, this was in a conversation of the popular vote versus the Electoral College. And oftentimes the claim is, if we went to a popular vote, Wisconsin would get skipped over. Everybody would go to California, Texas, New York, all those kind of things. But people would fly over the Midwest. The reason this chart is getting play right now, actually, I have the audio right beneath it, is because Andy Brashear went
rank and file Democrats
and said this.
Want leaders to be pushing for making big changes, not smaller ones, even if they're easier to do. Also says they want to feel like the party is, as you said, fighting for them. What is then?
Yeah, I think people.
Well, what I'm curious about is given they're looking for big ideas, what would be your biggest, boldest idea that you're promoting these days?
Well, I'll give you 2, because people want you to fix the darn economy, and they want you to fix the darn government. On the economy, it is time for an aspirational investment in housing that can bring down the cost of especially first-time home ownership. People can actually see that progress all over the country. We ought to tie the federal dollars to speed. You've got to break ground, and you've got to do it quickly. Get through the overregulation and the NIMBYism. But I tell you what, people also think this government is broken. So a fix the darn government constitutional amendment, it is time. It should outlaw partisan redistricting and enshrine part of the Voting Rights Act right there in the Constitution. It should create term limits for Congress and the Supreme Court. No more gaming those appointments. It should also overturn Citizens United, and I think call for direct elections of the president and the vice president. That could actually make things work. A big idea that would, yes, change government, but in a way enshrined in the Constitution where people would know it's going to get better.
I didn't realize you support abolishing the Electoral College. If you're saying direct election of the president and vice president.
Yeah, I've said it a number of times, and it's because in Kentucky, we will never see a candidate for president or vice president unless they're from here. Why? Because people just expect that it'll go one way or the other. It's the idea that someone would get elected not just knowing about 7 states, but having to earn votes all over the United States. I certainly think it's time.
And so those 7 states, it just so happens we are one of them. And so, as I was saying last night, it's a matter of voting against your own self-interest. Wisconsin's the prettiest girl in the ball every 4 years. Every 4 years, it's what do you guys want? You guys need a new bridge? You guys need a home investment? You guys need some kind of government stimulus package? Just make sure you vote for us and you'll be okay. Which is why so many people are confused why the Trump administration is ignoring like disaster relief for Wisconsin, because we're supposed to get all the shit we want all the time because our votes matter that much. I recognize that if the Electoral College went away, a lot of that leverage for Wisconsin would be gone. And whether you're Democratic or Republican, I would understand why you're in favor of that here still. And I'm also coming from Pennsylvania, also one of those states. So I have done nothing except exclusively live in states where politicians feel a need to pander. Once every 4 years, of course. When's the last time you've seen a politician who isn't running for office in Wisconsin? Exactly. But it doesn't change the fact that there are benefits that come with being that swing state that we oftentimes reference. Here's the deal, though. The Electoral College is antiquated. And if there were ever a time to try and push back against it, now would be the time, because the Republicans just won a popular vote and they might be getting a little big for their britches. They might be thinking that this is going to be the norm and not an accident. It's time, more specifically, for ranked choice voting with a popular vote. And I think Democrats would do a lot better platforming that, which is why they won't, because they ultimately would lose more to progressives in a ranked choice voting system. But I found it ironic that this statistic came out there, because who's to say that we are more important than the people in California? Obviously, we would say that because we're here. I would say that in Pennsylvania because I was there. If I were in any of the 43 states not represented by those 7, yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it. And I think that we as human beings need to be able to internalize that kind of feeling, because while, again, I don't expect any of you guys to vote against your own self-interest, it's all about empathy. I've defended the unions backing Crowley because Crowley's agenda means more money for them in the short term and less environment and privacy for us in the long term. They are not thinking about our long term. They are thinking about their short term. So it's a similar idea with the Electoral College as well. The question is, why, like, there's not enough of the population to want to stop that. And I understand Republicans want to keep it because they know their policies are growing less popular by the week. But even Republican voters, I think, are waking up to the bullshit. Personally, that's at least my opinion. I love CKK says Bashir sounds jazzed as heck. He reminds me of Kenneth from 30 Rock. For anyone that watched 30 Rock, like that's who I think of anytime I hear him talk. Jim says right now national politics pays attention to flyover states once every 4 years. Exactly. CKK says the bulk of the population is coastal. That's where the attention would be. Oh, absolutely. But I am saying the argument that if we went to a popular vote, that politicians would only pay attention to a handful of states is a felonious argument. Just say what we're all thinking. I want to keep the Electoral College because I'm in a state that benefits from the way the math works out in the Electoral College. Like, we're like, yo, if we get rid of the Electoral College, instead of paying attention to Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, they're going to pay attention to New York and California. Well, I bet the people in New York and California would really like that. The idea that the Electoral College prevents people from isolating and focusing on a few states is a laughable assertion, is my point. I don't think I agree with getting rid of the Electoral College. I'm fine with interstate compact, which end runs it, and I'd be fine with a proportional count to spur a more parliamentary makeup, or ranked choice voting in a couple of years. And Joseph keeps let's see, a ranked choice voting would be a dream. Exactly. I wish. It feels like a dream though, because like George Carlin says, you have to be asleep in order to have it. My logic for keeping the Electoral College helps to protect the states as entities. If we go to a direct popular vote, then we may as well get rid of our state constitutions. Well, you know what I find is that the whole states' rights arguments oftentimes goes out the window the second anybody, like, it just is, it's on a case-by-case basis of when people even want states' rights to begin with. You know, if there's a federal law that people disagree with, they want it to be by the state. If their state is preventing them from doing something they want to do, they're like, why don't we do what most of the states do? It's much like the ageism thing. It's why I never allow ageism to impact me. Because did I think Joe Biden was obviously slipping? Fuck yeah. But I absolutely would have voted for Bernie Sanders in 2024 if the Democrats let a primary happen. Bernie's old as shit. So I never came at Biden for his age. I came at Biden for his lack of urgency addressing the economy post-COVID. And, of course, came at the Republicans for blocking any meager efforts that he was trying to make. It was hand in hand. But, so that's kind of how I view the states' rights conversation personally. Less swing states, easier to fix the election, says Robin. You're going to get me muted. But, yeah, you're not wrong. California and New York find a large amount of federal government. Yeah, I feel that. Thanks for the follow, Uper. I appreciate that very much. I'm jealous of your state if you're living in Michigan right now. Well, I think we've done all the damage we're going to do here today. Subscribe to my YouTube page. Uper, if you're on YouTube, if you want to click subscribe on the YouTube button too, that would go a long way to helping a brother out. How did we do today? Did these random calls and insults to people do anything to drive that number up during the show today or not? It did, by 1. Okay, great. Thank you, Uper. Possibly by 2 now. All right, great. We're going to get there slowly but surely. You know, you can copy that YouTube link. You guys can post it in your own socials and tell everybody to follow the Ben Comino's YouTube page, and that will go a lot. Some of you guys do that, and I love you for it. I dropped it. It was too much. It's there. For all your plumbing concerns, possibly consider calling Roush Plumbing, the plumbing and remodeling company the Fox Valley depends on. They got a free text line as well as this email that you have right here. They do great work, and he's just a stand-up dude. He's been doing so many things for people all around our great area as we recover from tornado damage here. So always support Tim Roush. This is the Tim Roush studio. Technically, it's not a Tim Roush studio yet, but I'm calling it that. The Tim Roush studio will be much more fancy as we move closer there. As I said, I'm getting the signage made as we speak. Doing some painting with a couple of cohorts of mine over the weekend. I got a desk in there already. We've got a chair in there already, and I'm setting up a little like between two ferns interview station for separate of the main stage. And then when I'm doing interviews, we're going to sit at the nice place over there and do what we need to do there. So I think we got good things trending. Definitely be ready by September 1st, and there's a chance that it might even go further than that. So we'll see what ends up happening. Can they flush the orange turd? I'm not going to make him get political with his ads, but that's actually not a terrible assessment. Between two ferns. Yeah, why not? Why not? An arrest warrant was issued for Jill Stein. I saw somebody talking about that on my YouTube chat as well. Between two hot and readies, holy shit, that might happen. There's going to be a Little Caesars box somewhere, for sure. For sure. I guarantee you, if I went to Little Caesars, I'm there enough that they know me. And I was like, hey, give me 20 empty boxes of pizza. I had an idea, and they would totally let me have it. Absolutely. Yeah, I brought that up, Jarmani. We're working on it. If anything, I'm just going to buy my own much stronger internet, but he's being cool about it. He's like, well, we might run an X, Y, and Z. I think it's going to be wired. I appreciate you bringing that up. I'm working on the technical side of things still, but that's a fair question for sure. And I will continue looking into that. Put pizza in the trap. I'd walk right into it, Violet. I walk into it every time without the pizza there. Putting the pizza there would only exacerbate the situation. You got Ben After Dark coming up. I don't have an office hours today because I'm doing those at 8 a.m. So if you're listening to me on the Minocqua Brewing page and you're a paid subscriber, that is already available for you to watch. I'm doing it at 8 a.m. on Tuesdays now so that I have my afternoon to I'm actually, I'm not going to jinx it, but I have a meeting with another potential advertiser going on later today, so we'll see what ends up happening here. I'm sorry you're so tired, PJ. I've been talking for 2 fucking hours. You missed the whole show. We're about to call it a program here, but you're more than happy to go back and watch it later. But I have a potential meeting with a client going on at a little later on this afternoon. We're going to meet up for drinks, so we'll see what happens there. At least I would feel. Oh, okay, Joseph. Joseph, you newer here because, like, you started off. I'm like, I'm gonna deal with the troll, and now you've been funnier lately. No, it's not a side hustle, El Joe. My intention. I'm intending to turn this into like, all right, long-term goal. I want to be. I'm glad you found it too, Reptoid. I'm glad you're here. My long-term goal is to be totally crowd-funded so that I can just say and do whatever I want. But also, like, that's going to be at $10 a time. Like, it doesn't come with health insurance or retirement or anything like that. So it's going to take a lot of time before I can get it to that point. So my intention is to essentially turn this into a radio show. And I'm going to be I'm already cutting ads for Roush. And I want to find like 8 or 9 other companies that want to advertise. Because to be real, talking for 2 straight hours without taking a break, you guys can tell I sometimes lose my train of thought. My transitions are a little touchy because, like, any other show takes a fucking break, and I don't ever get a break. So, like, I want to have a couple commercial breaks, have people pay to be part of it, but I only want it to be companies that, like, not that I agree with politically, but that are good people. Like, I'm not just taking every single person that comes my way. So the way I'm focusing on it is I meet the people, and as much as I am pitching them on the idea, I'm also interviewing them as well to see if they are the kind of business that I want to throw my lot in with. So that's kind of the short-term and long-term goals. So my goal by the end of 2026 is to have 8 companies advertising on this show, and then have 2 4-minute commercial breaks every hour where they can play their ads. And then you guys know that I am advertising good people that buy into the concept of independent media and being able to speak your free mind. And they get the return on investment. I get a little bit of break, and I am able to do this professionally going forward. I'd absolutely, if they have a capacity to ship, I would absolutely do Smitten Kitten. What ethics in business? Are you sure that's allowed? I'm going to try it. There's probably a reason why no one else does it, and I might run into that reason, but I'm trying my damnedest to make it happen this way. Joseph, you're great. And I don't mean native gamer Joseph. I mean newer Joseph. I hope you keep sticking around. I'm sorry. I was dealing with actual trolls, and then I think you might have got swept into the mix. And I apologize if I was a bit aggressive at times, but sometimes there's friendly fire on this show. Same thing to Robin. Sometimes when the a-holes come out, I handle it. Violet says, stay ethical or I'll leave forever. Well, I just wouldn't tell you, Violet. You would just assume everything were status quo. You're an actual troll. I feel that. I'll buy a 30-second ad to talk smack on boomers. I offer cheap prices, CKK. I'm so much cheaper than radio or TV. Let's just say if you were considering advertising on a little radio station in Northeast Wisconsin, I'd be like 25% of the cost because I have no overhead. All right, you know what? This might be a fun way to end it. A lot of people have left, but let's see. Maybe Mr. Sparky's cool. Maybe they're an a-hole. Let's find out what happens. Hello, you're on Outside the Box.
What's up?
Nothing much. How you doing? What's on your mind?
Not too bad. I seen your post about Wapaka data centers. I didn't make it to the meeting as I'm a town over and don't have the transportation nor the time to have made it to the meeting.
Sure.
And I seen your post that it got canceled or rescheduled because it's like a fire hazard.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Hundreds of people. Now, you can determine if you think that's bullshit or not. But to me, I think that's a good sign of exactly. And that's Wapaka. It's not like that's a liberal cause. Like, that's a conservative town coming out for things that liberals, progressives, conservatives, libertarians, everybody's coalescing around it. So, I mean, I think that's a net positive. And I hope that the governor, the candidate for governor, kind of reflects that attitude. You know what I mean? Right on, man. Well, I'm just about to wrap up the show for the day. I'm glad you joined. You should follow along. I do a lot of data center and flock camera stuff all the time on this show. So if that's your thing, I try and keep the Northeast Wisconsin area updated. So thanks for stopping in, man. I'll talk to you later. Yeah, right on. Nice. Nice. I was certain we were going to get a lot of shit talk. Do some man on the street shit. I'm going to. I have a lot of ideas. Once I situate and like coalesce, and I know I have a little bit of income coming in. And I mean, I have Tim now. I'm paid to play my show through Minocqua. I've hopefully got a couple of other companies jumping on board as well here. Then I'm going to focus on branching this shit out into a number of different avenues as well that I've kind of been kicking around with the people like that have been around on TikTok since the beginning, and some people in my inner circle locally as well. So we're going there. Ben on the street, name a woman. Well, you know what's funny? It's too bad Erin the intern's not here, because I remember she was interning with me, and a coworker of mine was interviewing Jill Biden. And I was like, yeah, but it's not like if I interviewed Jill Biden. It was like, I said it was a much softer interview. And I said, she was probably asking her questions like, what's it like to be a doctor and a woman? And that freaking killed Erin, because she was like, I thought you were going to say a doctor and the first lady. And you said a doctor and a woman. And I was like, all right, I know Erin and I are going to get along just fine. Like, that would be my man on the street kind of stuff. Put people in awkward situations and just then see how they react. Like, I think that would be hilarious. But wait, what Facebook settings, Joe? What's whose name? I can't name any women. I thrive in awkwardness, you and me both. Oh, I don't know. See, I don't have any frame of reference for what other people are doing on social media because I do not go on social media. Trust me, you guys give me shit for it all the time. The only reason I use social media is to post stuff. I don't passively scroll, really, other than when I'm looking for content. Oh, pages can't follow me. I will work on that. I'm glad you reminded me. I need to change it to business. Okay. That's good to know. Oops. There we go. All right. I said I was going to quit like 11 minutes ago, so I'm going to quit now. Yeah, no, I hear you, and I want Sons of Liberty to follow. By the way, everyone should check out the Sons of Liberty page on Facebook. That's Joe's page, and it's supposed to sound MAGA, but I promise it isn't. So go ahead and check that out. Better not to watch other streamers. You have more of a radio feel. That's what I'm going for. So, I mean, that's good. That's good. We'll try and get some commercials. And seriously, if any of you can vouch for a small business owner that's looking for a community that oh, she's an admin. It's not her page, but I'm going to give her credit anyway because, I mean, who the fuck's going to stop me? Nobody. That's who. But if any of you guys know a small or medium-sized business that's looking to advertise but doesn't want to drop thousands of dollars doing it, Let them know about me. I'm happy to share my email and whatnot for anybody that wants to reach out. I'm doing well on my own. My background's in sales. Like, I'm good at pitching the idea to people. I got a handful of companies already interested. But like I said, I'm willing to start at 8, and then I'm willing to blow it up from there. I'm willing to be 45 minutes of ads. I'm joking. We're never going to get there. But 8 minutes an hour feels like a reasonable break time. You know what I mean? Oh, it seems like a lot of people know SOL, Eljo, now that people realize what it is. So you sold a stereo receiver to a dead man once. I can sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. All right, I'm calling it a show. Yeah, too late. You ruined it. I knew what you wanted to say, and I read it wrong intentionally anyway because I'm an a-hole. Everybody have a great evening. I'll be back at 7 p.m. tonight for Ben After Dark. Looking forward to seeing some of you guys there. Goodbye.